Feels like 16. I don't feel like 16.
Will the Senate please come to order? Our devotional exercises will be conducted by the Reverend Mark Fay of the Vibrant Church of South Burlington. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Senators.
Good afternoon.
It's truly an honor to be here with you. First time I feel a little bit underdressed. My apologies for no tie. But if we could all bow our heads and just ask God's blessing. Holy and sovereign God, we just do pause this moment to acknowledge your presence, your authority, your goodness that has shaped our forefathers' thoughts and who sought you out for direction in our nation. We come not in our own strength, not in our own wisdom, not in our own understanding, but in humble dependence on you, the one who sees all, knows all, loves all. We lift up those who have appointed to be senators here in Vermont and to the people they serve across our beautiful, great state. And Lord, we ask for you to reignite our passion to serve you first and foremost, and that they would all experience here your goodness and your grace. I pray that everyone here would come to have the ability to see you for who you are, truth. I pray that you would awaken the inhabitants of our state in such a way that it would bring healing, restoration, especially to those who've been wounded. Lord, bring clarity where there has been chaos and confusion in our state, unity where there has been division, and compassion where there has been indifference. I pray you would soften hearts, strengthen character, renew purpose within all of us. For when you revive people, you bring healing that goes deeper than circumstances. You bring vision that enables leaders to see the clarity and truth. You complete our purpose, so decisions are made with integrity and courage. You bring unity so people can work together for the common good, and you heal the unseen wounds that human effort alone cannot teach. Lord, let your word guide us as we pray. You declared in Isaiah chapter 61, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he hath anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the afflicted, to bind up those who are brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to those who are captive, and to release those who are bound by the effects of this world, to announce a year of favor from the Lord and a day of vindication by our God. Let that same spirit rest upon these leaders today. Let that same compassion shape their decisions. Let that same mission of hope guide their work. And Father, remind us that your wisdom is greater than man's knowledge. Human understanding has limits, but your wisdom has none. Human insight can be clouded, but your truth shines with perfect clarity. Your word tells us that the foolishness of God is wiser than man, and the weaknesses of God is stronger than mankind. Let that truth humble us, steady us, and lead us. Lift these leaders beyond what they can calculate, beyond what they can predict, beyond what they can reason on their own. Let them draw from the well of your divine wisdom. And we pray that the hope that anchors our soul, the steady, unshakable hope found only in you, would rise up in the hearts of our senators and in the hearts of the people they represent. Let that hope steady them in uncertainty, strengthen them in difficulty, and guide them toward what is good and life-giving. Let it be a hope that calms fear, quiets division, and inspires courage to do what is right. Grant our leaders divine understanding that sees beyond party lines and into people's lives, understanding that listens deeply, understanding that protects the vulnerable, honors the overlooked, and lifts those who feel forgotten, understanding that reflects the heart of Jesus, who came not to be served, but to serve. When issues are complex, grant clarity. When disagreements rise, grant patience. When decisions feel heavy, grant courage. And when the path forward is uncertain, let your light reveal the way. Bless every leader with wisdom that serves people well. Bless their families with peace, and bless their staff with strength, and bless the communities they represent with provision, protection, and hope. Lord, you're the God who binds up the brokenhearted, who brings beauty from ashes, who restores what was lost, and who revives what was fading. Let that same resurrection hope guide every heart in this chamber today, and let your presence fill this place with peace and joy, and let your wisdom shape our decisions, and let your healing flow through our entire state in ways you can only accomplish. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you all.
Are there any announcements? Seeing none. We have Senate Bill S-211, an act relating to motor vehicle inspections, being on the calendar for notice and affecting the revenues of the state. Under Rule 31 is referred to the Committee on Finance. We have Senate Bill S-326, an act relating to amendments to laws relating to motor vehicles, being on the notice calendar and affecting the revenues of the state. Under Rule 31, it is referred to the Committee on Finance. We now have a Senate resolution to take up at this time, SR 22, Senate resolution relating to the concurrently conducted electronic committee meetings. Listen to the reading of the resolution by title only.
SR 22, Senate resolution relating to concurrently conducted electronic committee meetings.
Now you've heard the reading of the resolution. The chair, in its discretion, will place the resolution on the calendar for notice tomorrow. We now have another Senate resolution to take up at this time, SR 23, Senate resolution relating to electronic participation in Senate sessions. Listen to the reading of the resolution by title only.
SR 23, Senate resolution relating to electronic participation in Senate sessions.
Now you've heard the reading of the resolution. The chair, in its discretion, is placing the resolution on the calendar for notice tomorrow. Orders of the day. We have on the calendar for action S-255, introduced on January 15th of 26. It was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as it appears in today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
S-255, an act relating to establishing a pilot law enforcement governance council in Windham County.
I recognize the senator from Rutland District, Senator Collmore, for the report of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. S-255 establishes a voluntary, geographically constrained, time-limited pilot program creating a governance council in Windham County. The proposal is explicitly framed as a governance and funding reform, not an operational policing mandate. It uses existing law enforcement contract funds already paid by participating towns. It does not create a general fund appropriation and does not require participation by non-member towns. Only towns opting into the pilot would pay the assessment. Mr. President, may I speak to both the committee amendment, which you'll find on page 216, and also the underlying bill?
You may.
So, as I mentioned, this proposes to create a pilot program that we call the Windham County Law Enforcement Governance Council, hereafter referred to as simply Council, which would provide orchestrated law enforcement and related services to participating towns within Windham County through 2033. Specific services will be determined by the council, provided by the Windham County Sheriff's Department, and funded by a special assessment on member municipalities in proportion to the population of each member. This bill is session law. There are no existing statutes that are modified. The amendment, which again you'll find on page 216, draft 1.1 from the Senate Committee on Government Operation, seeks to modify the underlying bill in two ways. First, by changing how member municipalities enter and exit the program, and now to be done by vote of the town's legislative body. And then secondly, by changing the financing mechanism so that the county treasurer shall levy and collect a special assessment in proportion to each member's population rather than the grand list. Now the bill itself, section 1 has to do with definitions. Section 2, authorization and establishment. It authorizes the creation of the council for the purpose of providing regional law enforcement and related services during the pilot period. The council may begin operations and taxation on either July 1st, 2026, or on the date by which 5 or more member municipalities have voted to become member municipalities, whichever occurs later. Section 3 has to do with membership, as modified by the Senate Government Operations Amendment that enables municipalities in Windham County to join and exit the council by vote of the town's legislative body. Each member municipality shall have one representative with one vote on the council. Council representative shall be a serving select board member of that municipality and will be selected by the municipality select board. Section 4 has to do with governance. It sets forth the governance structure, the powers and duties of the council. The council will meet at least quarterly and at other such times as necessary. All meetings shall be warned and conducted in accordance with Vermont's open meeting law. The council shall have powers and duties to adopt bylaws for the operation of the council, to determine the annual budget for law enforcement and related services to be provided to the member municipalities, establish the level and scope of services to be delivered to those member municipalities, develop standards and performance metrics for delivered law enforcement and related services, monitor service delivery, and evaluate the program's effectiveness, submit the approved budget to the Windham County Assistant Judges for inclusion in the county budget, and finally enter into agreements necessary for the provision of those services. Section 5, budget and financing. It details the fiscal elements of the council. The council will prepare an annual budget, submit it to the Windham County Assistant Judges, who will include it as a separate item in the larger county budget. The county treasurer then levies and collects a special assessment on member municipalities in proportion to each municipality's population. Non-member municipalities shall not be assessed or charged for any of the council services. These specific services will be determined by the council and guaranteed between the parties by an annual contract. They have to specify in that contract the types and levels of service to be provided, the standards and performance metrics for delivered law enforcement services, reporting requirements, and allocation of resources among the member municipalities. These law enforcement services provided by the Windham Sheriff will be coordinated with state law enforcement agencies, existing member and non-member municipal law enforcement agencies, and emergency services to ensure efficient resource utilization. Section 7 deals with reporting and evaluation. It directs the council to provide periodic reports as well as a final report. Beginning in 2027, the council will submit a report to the House and Senate Committees on Government Operations, the Windham County Legislative Delegation, and any of the member municipalities containing the financial statements for the preceding year, service delivery stats and performance metrics, member municipality participation and satisfaction levels, challenges encountered, and lessons learned, and recommendations for improvement. And by December 31st, 2033, the council will submit a comprehensive evaluation of the pilot program to the General Assembly, including an assessment of the cost effectiveness compared to alternative service delivery models, an analysis of service quality improvements, an evaluation of the model's effectiveness, recommendations regarding continuation, modification, or expansion of the program, and a proposed framework for statewide replication if warranted. Section 8, limitations and protections, again, explicitly preserves the rights of non-member municipalities, which will not be assessed any costs related to council operations. will continue to receive state police services as currently provided and do retain all rights to establish their own local law enforcement agencies or contract for law enforcement services independently. This section also makes clear that the bill will not affect the constitutional or statutory duties of the Windham County Sheriff. It will not alter state police responsibilities for coverage or impact existing municipal law enforcement agencies. Section 9 has the sunset date determination. Again, it sunsets this council on June 30th, 2034, or in the event of the number of member municipalities being reduced to 1, it will cease to be, whichever occurs first. At the time of termination, any remaining funds will be returned proportionately by population to current and prior member municipalities that were members during the current fiscal year. Section 10 is just a conforming amendment and clarifies that the Windham County Assistant Judges are authorized to levy differential tax rates on member and non-member municipalities, regardless of any provision to the contrary in Title 24. The bill will take effect on passage. The committee heard from a list of folks, as you might imagine, both senators from Windham County, Tim Devlin, our legislative counsel, Jeanette White, former senator from Windham County, Matt Birmingham, the colonel of the Vermont State Police, Mark Anderson, the Windham County Sheriff, Kim McManus, legislative policy and records attorney for the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, Jeremy Evans, assistant police chief in Brattleboro, Jennifer Morrison, the commissioner of DPS, Josh Hanford, the director of VLCT, and then a number of assistant judges and managers in the various municipalities that would be affected. Committee's vote was 4-1-0, and we ask for the Senate's concurrence. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Government Operations? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the reporter of the bill?
The reporter of the bill is interrogated.
So in the bill, you use the term special assessment is used, and I'm wondering, is that not a tax? Is that a tax, special assessment?
I thank the senator for the question. Many of the details of what will be envisioned here will be the responsibility of the council. So in terms of any special assessment, many of the towns in various counties throughout the state are already paying for law enforcement services, and this would, assuming the council chooses to do things differently, there could be additional charges.
Well, in the bill, it says the county treasurer shall levy and collect a special assessment. My reading of that is a tax.
Again, the council will determine many of the details. The underlying bill strictly sets up the governance, but the senator is correct. There would be tax levy, yes.
Okay, so tax would be levied, and this would not be part, the tax levied would not be part of the municipal budget. Right now, if these towns wanted to contract for sheriff services, law enforcement services, they would enter into a contract with that sheriff, and the cost of that contract would be part of the municipal budget that the voters then vote on. So there's a vote of the body of the voters in a town to approve a budget that includes the contracting cost for a contract for municipal law enforcement services. Is that correct, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, that is correct.
So under the bill, though, this new entity, the council, that is set up which is not elected as a whole, as a council, it's just one member of each municipal's select board, would determine the budget for this new arrangement, and the county treasurer would levy and collect a special assessment, which is a tax. And that tax would not be that would not show up in the municipality's budget anywhere. It would be a separate tax from the property taxes that are levied for those municipalities. Is that correct, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President. Again, in section 5, the council prepares an annual budget, submits it to the Wyndham County Assistant Judges, who include it as a separate item in the larger county budget.
Okay, so the county budget is not voted on by the voters. And by all accounts, almost nobody knows what the county budget is, how much the county tax is. Nobody goes to the county budget meetings. So there's very little transparency on what is in a county budget. The other major local municipal budgets, the town budget is voted on town meeting day, or as either in a meeting or by a vote of the full electorate. And the school budgets, as we all know, we are all talking about school budgets in this building a lot, or many of us are. Those are also voted on by the electorate, but this one would not be voted on, right? This would be a county levied tax that the voters would never get a chance to vote on. Is that correct?
That is correct. However, I would point out that current contracts with sheriffs are approved by the legislative body of that municipality, and they're not also voted on by the voters.
Correct, but they are part of a town's budget. They are part of the municipal budget that the voters vote on. So that they are part of a larger budget the voters vote on for the town. Mr. President, the committee's amendment would remove the provision that in order to enter into this type of contract, there would have to be a vote of the majority of the voters of the municipality. Could you help me, Mr. President, could the reporter explain what the logic was to removing the vote of the full municipal voters before entering into this pilot project?
Well, Mr. President, I believe the effectiveness of dealing with just the legislative body makes it a bit easier to affect change like this.
Was there a concern that maybe the voters of the town would not approve it?
I don't believe we ever discussed that exactly. We did have some concern with making that change. But again, there are other instances where the legislative body, who are duly elected representatives, are the ones making the decision. And I think if people wanted to attend a special meeting of that legislative body, they could speak out. And in the end, if they disagree with the legislative body's members, they could remove them by election.
I understand that, Mr. President. However, this is a budget item, a tax that is being levied on local voters that they don't get to vote on, unlike other taxes that are levied on local voters, where they are levied for the support of their town budget or projects in their town or support of their local school district or school projects. So this would be a unique situation where there would be a tax levied through the county treasurer that the local voters would not vote on. So I thank the reporter of the bill. Mr. President, we have spent a lot of time in this building trying to reduce property taxes through one mechanism or another, uprooting our entire school system to try to figure out a way to bring down property taxes. Our municipalities are under huge stress right now, trying to lower their tax rates in a time when the cost of everything is going up. And our voters are understandably incredibly concerned about the cost of local government services, whether they be educational services or municipal services. And I think that having a pilot program that levies a tax on our on local towns, even if it's only in a certain pilot area, this is not the right time to be doing that. And so while I am not supportive of this entire project in general, I am I would hope that we would vote down that committee's amendment to take out the provision where the voters have to vote on this. it's imperative that the voters get a chance to vote on levying a tax in their municipality. And so if we are going to move forward with this bill, I think that's an important provision to allow local voters to vote on levying taxes in their district. And so I urge the body to vote against the Committee on Government Operations Committee amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Might I inquire to the reporter of the bill?
The reporter is interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. In my former years, Mr. President, I was on a South Burlington City Council, and on that council, I was appointed to the Green Mountain Transit Authority, which was a municipal entity with, I think, about 9 or so member municipalities. And I believe we had assessment capability based on a formula that was determined in statute based on how many service hours were in each municipality for our busing system that was going around Chittenden County. The way that system works, Mr. President, I'm wondering if the reporter might be able to overlay, is the member municipalities would receive an assessment from Green Mountain Transit, the amount owed, and that amount would be rolled into the budget that was put before the voters. So the voters would have to vote on their annual town budget, which included everything, including line items for specific assessments from a governing entity. Mr. President, would this be similar in that same context, or would this be the county sending out individual property tax bills to each resident that owns a parcel within the county? Or would it be more comparable to the Green Mountain Transit example, as well as like the solid waste districts that also have assessment authorities that don't always use them because they collect in tipping fees? Somewhat of a leading question, Mr. President, but I'm wondering if the reporter might be able to overlay how this construct might be to other similar entities.
Well, Mr. President, I so appreciate leading questions. I would liken it more to the transit situation. There will be an item on the ballot, or on the ballot, the budget, for people to vote on.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I please inquire of the reporter of the bill?
The reporter is interrogated.
Mr. President, I was a little surprised to see this bill come forward, only because I have certainly been concerned and troubled by some of the behaviors that we've seen in our sheriff departments over the last few years that I've read about in various newspapers and et cetera around the state. So my question is, I'm curious about what problem we're trying to solve, but beyond that, I'd like to know how these sheriffs who are going to be taking on this more regional role, how they're going to be held accountable. And we know that it's hard to impeach sheriffs. I don't think it's happened since for 100 years or so. So I am curious about how these folks in these new positions will be held accountable, Mr. President.
Thank you for the question, Mr. President. Again, as I mentioned in my opening remark, this proposal is explicitly designed and framed as a governance and funding reform and not an operational policing mandate. I do appreciate the senator's sentiment, if I'm reading it correctly. There are a number of us that sit on the Senate Government Operations Committee that have similar serious concerns about recent activities within the Sheriff's Department of some of our agencies across the state. But this bill does not address that. This is strictly a governance bill. I believe we will be having further discussions and come to some decision in the future about how we might be able to make sheriffs more accountable.
Mr. President, might I revert back to my sort of original query, which is what problem are we trying to solve in this bill?
You have the floor, Senator. You can question.
Thank you, Senator, or thank you, Mr. President. One of the things that became readily apparent, and I think it's true for a number of our municipalities throughout the state, is that law enforcement coverage geographically presents certain challenges. So if someone calls a local police agency and it's defaulted to the state police, which in a lot of cases it still is, it can sometimes take up to an hour for law enforcement to respond. So this was a way that the committee saw as being able to provide more immediate police coverage to those towns who don't have their own police department and have to rely on the state police.
I thank the reporter of the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the reporter?
The reporter is interrogated.
I believe, Mr. President, that the reporter contradicted in his, in answering the question from the senator from Chittenden South, and answering a question that I had asked. My question was about whether or not this assessment would show up on a municipal budget. And the answer was no, it's part of a county assessment. And then the answer to this senator from Chittenden South was that yes, it would. So that is a contradictory, it's my understanding, that's contradictory. So could the senator clarify the answer, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I'll just refer to section 5, and if I did misspeak or incorrectly characterize the question from the senator from Chittenden, the council will prepare an annual budget, submit it to the Windham County Assistant Judges, who will include it as a separate item in the larger county budget.
Thank you, Mr. President. That clarifies it. The county budget is not voted on by by the voters. The municipal budget is. It's not a separate line item in the municipal budget, like the example that the senator from Chittenden South gave. It is a line in the county budget, which is not voted on by the voters. I thank the reporter. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to interrogate the reporter, please.
The reporter's interrogated.
Is the reporter aware that in Windham County, the county budget is a line item in many town budgets? Possibly all of them, but I know.
If I could just, Mr. President, ask the senator to clarify. She said in many municipalities, but started off by saying in Windham County, and I'm
Well, yes.
I'm not a
So-
resident of Windham County, Mr. President, so I don't know what the county budget ballot looks like.
Mr. President, if I might ask for a 10-minute recess so that we can have Ledge Council speak to some of these questions and proceed more quickly.
We'll take a 10-minute recess.
I want to look.
Will the Senate please come to order? Senator from Wyndham, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So appreciate the time. I'd like to clarify some items. First of all, an assessment is different than a tax. They have different authorities. They have different ways of being calculated. But an assessment is different than a tax. I think that's important to know. The way that the budgets that I'm familiar with, which is about 5 or more of them in Wyndham County and actually in Chittenden County also, the town budget has a line item for the county assessment. The county budget is done in a public setting. Unfortunately, the amount of folks who go to that are minimal, but the county process does include public input to create the county budget. So then the county budget is apportioned to the towns, and the towns, depending on how they do their budgets, include the county amount in the budget. In the budgets that I've seen, the county amount is a line item. We had a conversation about if the budget goes down, the town still has to pay. Town still has to pay its light bill too. So yes, it's part of being part of a county is that you pay this fee. I don't know if the entire fee is a tax or an assessment, but an assessment is different than a tax, and I can talk about that more if anybody wants to. I think I'd like to discuss the reason behind this, which is really important. If we had 1 hour service by the state police, we probably would not be talking about this. We used to have that level of service. Our county is very rural, other than the towns either at the snow areas or by the Connecticut River. It's very, very rural, and it's very similar to the Northeast Kingdom, which is something that we found out in the school redistricting task force. So what has happened is that we used to have service maybe within an hour. Now it's multiple hours, or they just don't come at all. And we only have 3 police departments in our county. They are mostly full served. All of the positions are staffed. So and they do a great job, but their jurisdiction is the towns. So there's the vast swath of the county has very little service from the state police. So the sheriff has had years of dealing with this and has tried different things. The contracts that have been done with towns are typically 1-year contracts, and they're just obviously with a single town. He's tried grouping towns together so that there could be that it would be a more effective service if you can have 2 people in an area rather than 1 person. But it's really, really challenging to do that on a town-by-town basis, and there's not continuity. So that's why this structure is to provide some continuity and more than a year of planning, and to have a reasonable, fair way to pay for the town. So it's actually a very, I think it's a pretty elegant suggestion because it's very simple. It has the fewest moving parts necessary and the least amount of administration necessary. So I hope that the body will support this.
So the question is, shall the bill be amended by the Committee on Government Operations? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
I inquire of the reporter of the bill.
The reporter is interrogated.
I apologize. Usually I would ask this question between second and third reading of the senator off this floor, but since this is part of the amendment and we're going to be voting on it, I want to just be able to ask this question. And that is the third instance of amendment striking that the levy of this assessment would be collected on the grand list was changed to just in proportion to the municipal's population. I just didn't know if the committee or the reporter could explain why they made that change from as introduced.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did talk about that at some length. We felt, I think, overall, if I can sum it up, that it introduces a little bit more equity into the puzzle. Those municipalities with more people have a tendency to require more police coverage, and so they would be, in essence, shouldering a little bit more of the burden, perhaps, but also more of the service.
Okay, I thank the senator for that answer, and maybe I'll ask the sponsors of the legislation in between second and third reading about that. Thank you.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire the reporter of the bill?
The reporter is interrogated.
Thank you. Since I think this may pertain to the amendment, but it also probably pertains to the underlying bill, so I figured I would ask it now. It appears that this may constitute an additional cost to some municipalities if for a service that is currently being served by state troopers. Did the Government Operations Committee receive any testimony or have any indication that as a result of this, we might see a reduction in the budget, let's say, for the state troopers, since it's a reduced demand on their work?
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellent question. We did talk about that. As I mentioned on the witness list, Matt Birmingham, who was a colonel in the Vermont State Police, I believe it was myself that asked him specifically if this were to go into place, would it lessen the pressure on the Vermont State Police to respond out of Westminster down to Vernon, because they might be part of the municipalities that are joining, thereby providing themselves with more police coverage. And with that in mind, would they be able to reduce staffing at the barracks further north? And he didn't want to commit to that totally, but I think overall, while he did not take a position, I'll be very clear on the bill, I don't think he can, he was very much in favor of regional police.
I thank the reporter.
Senator from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. President. In a past life, when I was wearing a different uniform, I'd probably be more inclined to give the sheriffs a hard time here, but won't be doing it. I will say as to the service that can be provided in Windham County, for members, keep in mind that the Westminster Barracks, it covers Windham County and Windsor County. Oftentimes, there are short shifts, which equal about 4 troopers for all of Windham and Windsor County. If there is a domestic, let's say somewhere in Windsor County, that's going to take up at least 2 troopers. And so now you have 2 troopers tied up with something that's going to take at least 3 or 4 hours, and 2 other troopers to cover an area that is very vast and also very rural. This is a good pilot project, and as times change and our ability to deliver services change, we do have to get more creative in our approach. And I do think that this is a pilot project that could inform our decision-making as to how we deliver other essential services in future years. So I'll be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Government Operations? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Government Operations. Now, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment, which I believe is in the calendar on page 216. So I just wanted to first explain sort of my logic for introducing this amendment, and then I can walk you through the provisions in the amendment. One of the other senators who stood to ask a question about the amendment alluded to the fact that over the last several years, we have seen a number of incredibly horrific, I would say, several concerning and a couple horrific situations with the behavior of sheriffs in the state of Vermont. And just over the last 5 years, we've seen 2 sheriffs arrested for sexually assaulting people while on duty in Addison County and Windsor County. We've seen a number of sheriffs have financial malfeasance, Orange County, Windsor County, Franklin County. We've had a number of sheriffs who have had personnel issues, Orange County, Franklin County, Windsor County, Addison County. We've had one sheriff who was living out of state while he was collecting pay as a sheriff. So I counted just 6 major issues in 6 different counties in the last 5 years with sheriffs, and that's not even including all the minor cases, and it's not even including all of the concerning things that have come up with deputy sheriffs over the last 5 years. And if I went back even further, there would be even more, including in Windham County, where a huge financial scandal occurred there with the Windham County sheriff with a prior sheriff. So the behavior and oversight of sheriffs is concerning on the behavior side and inadequate on the oversight side. For those of us who've been here for a number of years, you might recall in 2023, we passed Act 30. This was an attempt to provide a little bit more oversight of sheriffs. It introduced a number of provisions for reporting requirements, for oversight requirements. It beefed up some of the staffing at the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs for oversight. But ultimately, Mr. President, sheriffs are elected officials. They are constitutional officials. And when a sheriff acts inappropriately, indeed, when a sheriff is convicted of a crime, and when a sheriff loses their law enforcement certification, they can still remain sheriff. One of the provisions we did do in Act 30 was to reduce the salary by a small portion if they lose their certification, but they still can be sheriff. And we've seen a sheriff right now who is still sheriff after losing his law enforcement certification in Franklin County. And the ultimate way to remove a sheriff from office, if they are convicted of something, or if they behave horribly, or if they lose their law enforcement certification, or if they embezzle funds, or whatever it is to impeach them. And as was alluded to on the floor earlier, we have not impeached anyone in the state of Vermont for over 200 years. And so it is really hard to do it. And the House is really reluctant to engage in impeachment proceedings. They did so a couple years ago and they were unsuccessful. It's also expensive and contentious. So in the same year that we passed Act 30, and we did so with bipartisan support, and that went into effect, we also had a constitutional amendment proposal that would have allowed for provisions to remove a sheriff from office if they lost their law enforcement certification or some other kind of provision. That unfortunately did not move forward. But right now, we're in a position where if a sheriff does something really bad, they can stay the sheriff, they can stay getting paid most of that salary, and there's nothing we can do about it. And we're seeing that over and over again. 6 major issues in the last 5 years with sheriffs. Beyond that, just today in 2 major news outlets, we've seen headlines about state's attorneys having similar issues, and nothing we can do about a state's attorney as well unless we try to impeach them. So ultimately, what I would love to be able to do is pass a constitutional amendment to help remedy this problem, but we can't do that today. But what my amendment would do, well, first, actually, 2 years ago, we passed a bill, Act 118, that created a county and regional governance study committee. And that study committee was made up of 4 senators and 4 House members. It was co-chaired by the government operations chairs. And that study committee, which did start to meet, I was one of the co-chairs, and we met 3 times, and then the election happened and there were personnel changes, and it has not met since November of 2024. But that committee was supposed to look at county and regional government and how we can improve county and regional government in Vermont, and to make recommendations for how to do so. And I'll just want to read some of the things that it was supposed to make recommendations on. Enhancement and optimization of public safety, enhancement of regional collaboration and planning, efficient, equitable, and transparent allocation of public resources, promotion of effective regional public services for individual municipalities, clarification of the role and oversight of elected county officials and their departments, reduction of duplicated public services and promotion of opportunities for intermunicipal collaboration, and balance of availability and cost of services across municipalities in each county. This was what this was supposed to do. This was supposed to come back with recommendations on how to improve county and regional government. There are models for better county government. There are models for a council of governments. There are a lot of ways we can improve the transparency, the equity, and the efficiency of county government. Right now, our county government has none of those, and the accountability, none of those things. While I appreciate that this pilot program is trying to solve some of those issues with a pilot program, what it's doing is creating another mechanism of local or regional government, this council that would oversee it. And one of the things that we got testimony on in the County Regional Government Committee was the layers of regional government that we already have. Right now, and this was Doug Farnham, who was the Chief Recovery Officer. He had done this mapping project, and he came in to show us the maps of the overlay of regional government in Vermont. And he wasn't even finished with it yet, and there were 13 overlaying regional governments. So the county government, the regional planning commissions, the CUDs, the economic development corporations, all the things layered on top of each other. And depending on where you live, if you live in a border town, you might have 13 different regional structures and you don't know which one is which. And this would create another one of those regional structures. So instead of improving the efficiency of local government and regional government, this would make it more complex. So in order to attempt to address some of those, I'm introducing this amendment, which you can find in the calendar. And what it does is, in absence of more comprehensive legislation to provide more accountability for sheriffs, and in absence of a constitutional amendment, this would sort of beef up some of the things that we did in Act 30. So if you look on page 216 to look at the start of the amendment, it would add a few provisions. What we did in Act 30 was we required a few things, but we didn't have any accountability if the sheriffs didn't do those things. So, and we required them to report on a few things, but we didn't necessarily require them to report to all of the appropriate places. So in the first instance, on page 217, this is a report about financial disbursements, and they have to report to the auditor, and the amendment would add also the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, because they are the only sort of oversight mechanism for sheriffs. In the next under audits, right now the reports are provided to the Senate Judiciary Committee, but the Senate Government Operations Committee seems to be the committee that's doing a lot more work on oversight of sheriffs. So this would add the Government Operations Committee and the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs to those audit reports in a couple instances. And then also, once the Sheriff's Department receives the results of an audit, there is a requirement right now that they get recommendations, but there's no requirement that they actually enact those recommendations. So on the top of page 218, after we're getting the written audit report, the sheriff would have to implement the recommendations of the auditor, so that to make sure that there's no financial malfeasance, and that willful failure to comply with this subsection would constitute a Category B conduct. Category B conduct, these are levels of conduct that is overseen by the Criminal Justice Council. Category A conduct is the really bad stuff. If they do something violent or use their weapon in a way that's not appropriate, that would be a Category A conduct. Category B conduct is the failure to comply with policies and procedures. So this is in statute already in a number of places. So this is just beefing that up, saying that if you don't implement the audit procedures, you would have a Category B misconduct. And this kind of oversight is repeated a couple times. In the duties, we required in Act 30 that they make their schedule public, but we didn't have any consequences for them if they didn't, and also not a way to make it public. So this would require that they post it publicly and submit it to the Department of Sheriffs and State's Attorneys and Sheriffs. This is for the example of when a sheriff goes to Florida and doesn't actually do his job, which is apparently happening right now. And that willful failure to do so would also constitute a Category B offense. The next one is about if a sheriff is imprisoned, which has happened several times recently. And if that is the case, then when the sheriff is imprisoned, that sheriff would not, their salary would be suspended while they are in prison. It seems logical. They wouldn't be able to be the sheriff when they're in prison. And then we also, in Act 30, required them we required the Department of Sheriffs and State's Attorney to create model policies, but we never actually required the sheriffs to adopt them. So this would require them to adopt those model policies. And again, willful failure to comply would be a Category B offense. One thing I want to mention in the middle of page 218 under contracts, this would eliminate the ability of sheriffs to contract with an agency of the United States. I think this is consistent with some of the other work that we are doing, so that they couldn't contract with ICE, for example. That would eliminate that ability. Then there are effective dates. All of these provisions, accountability provisions, would take place on the effective date of passage, which is the same for the bill itself. And then but the bill itself, the pilot program, would not take effect until the County and Regional Government Study Committee did its work and reported back to the legislature, and the legislature had an opportunity to act on that study. As I said, that committee has not met and has not completed its work, even though it was required by statute to do so by November 1st of last year. So this would require that this pilot program wait to go into effect until the full work of that committee that's looking at how do we improve county and regional government would be able to go into effect and the legislature could act on the recommendations. For those of you who have followed Act 73, there's a similar provision in Act 73 that things have to wait to go into effect until we receive a report and can act on them for our school funding system. So it's a very similar kind of contingency. And that is the amendment, Mr. President. Thank you.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by just saying there's not a single member of that committee, Senate Government Operations Committee, that doesn't agree with the senator, the middle senator from the Chittenden Central District and the senior senator from Madison, that we have to do something to increase accountability with our sheriffs. I don't think there's any problem saying that. Whether that's, unfortunately, there are only three ways we can do it, either by death, by impeachment, or by a constitutional amendment right now. Short of that, there's really nothing else we can do at the moment. But I know that the members of my committee strongly feel that, and we'll do our best to find a way around that to make the sheriffs more accountable. Because there's likely bad behavior in a lot of different agencies, not just sheriffs, to be fair, but that needs to be, it would seem, addressed soon. So the committee met with the senator, the senior senator from Addison yesterday, went over the amendment, and with a straw poll voted not to support the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Chittenden Central.
Can I inquire of the presenter of the amendment?
The presenter of the amendment is interrogated.
I just want to be clear. So currently, if the state police or municipal law enforcement willfully failed to follow policy from the Criminal Justice Council, that could eventually lead to them losing their law enforcement certification. Are you saying that that is not true for sheriffs?
Sheriffs can lose their law enforcement certification, Mr. President. In fact, one sitting sheriff has lost his law enforcement certification, but doing so does not prevent him from remaining sheriff. So he is still sheriff. He still receives the salary of a sheriff, although it's been docked by 30%. He still is sheriff. He still retains the title and the badge, but he cannot perform law enforcement duties. Mr. President, they can lose their certification, but they can't be removed from office except for by impeachment.
I thank the senator. At one point when the senator was speaking, it sounded as if the sheriffs willfully did not follow policy, that might not be considered a Category B offense. And my concern with this is that I believe there is currently a sheriff that is refusing to follow the fair and impartial policing policy. And I would want to make sure that we're doing something about that, which is why I think this is actually a good amendment. So thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that I've served in 3 counties and with 3 different sheriff departments, and I'm very thankful for the work that they do. They cover a vast area that we can't supply law enforcement to. They do it great. The sheriffs that I know are outstanding individuals, and I bristled a little bit at the language of characterizations of some of the sheriffs, and I just want to show my support for what the sheriffs do in our state, the long history of, and I wish that the whole Senate would actually show their support and vote this amendment down. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Caledonia.
Mr. President, may I ask for a brief 2-minute recess?
2-minute recess. Senate, please come to order. Senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to remind the chamber that this bill is not about a single sheriff. There's clearly lots of work we need to do on the sheriffs. I am the senior senator of Windsor County, and we, as you all know, are having a very challenging moment with our sheriff. But this bill is not about a sheriff. This is about a pilot that this committee, Senate Government Operations, since I've been on it, since 2017, we have been trying to solve the problem of equity and access of public safety. There is not equity or equal access to public safety in this state. We have long wanted to solve that problem. We did a tour of the whole state looking at how we could regionalize fire, EMS, and law enforcement. This is a very modest pilot. This begins with one county that is a large county. I will point out that Windsor County happens to be the largest county by landmass in Vermont. So when the senator from Wyndham talks about the state police managing both Windsor and Wyndham, it's a huge task. But this, to get back to why, we have a huge equity and access problem in this state. I have had 2 domestic situations in Windsor County where the state police could not get to the town in time, and one resulted in a death and one resulted in major injury. I am sorry, we have no equity or access to public safety in this state. And for us to start with a small pilot in a county that has asked for this, these towns are asking for this. We haven't really focused on that so much. The 3 towns that have policing, great. But the rest of the county, it's 17 other towns, have asked for this. I would like to give them this opportunity for this pilot for 5 years. To go to the senator from Addison's concern, I appreciate her concern. We had great hopes for this task force, but they are not mutually exclusive. The pilot can function and run on parallel tracks with the task force. I hope the task force gets reconstituted. We need it badly. But this pilot, we also need badly because we need more equity and access for public safety, particularly law enforcement in this state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Windsor.
Mr. President, on this amendment, I would ask that I'm making a motion to divide the question on this amendment. I would like to divide it so that we vote on section 1 and section 2 separately. In my understanding of what that would do if you were to, let's say, just vote for section 1, but not vote for section 2, which is what I will be doing, is that would have section 1 still go into effect on passage and the entirety of the bill as it already stands. But in the section 2 part, what I disagree with in the amendment is that it has a delay of the pilot starting until the committee that's created has its results. So that's the part that I would not be comfortable voting for. So that is my intent, is a motion to divide the question when we take the vote.
It can actually be done as a request, and you don't even need a motion. So when we vote, we will do it in the first instance and then the second instance.
Thank you.
Senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be, so long as I fully understand the procedure here, I'll be voting no against both of these proposals of amendment. With the first section that was just divided from everything, when we look at the contracts, I believe there could be an issue when it comes to the contracts that are entered into with NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Association, as well as contracts entered into with the DOJ and the U.S. HUD. For some reason, there are contracts there with the sheriffs, but for lead abatement. So if these contracts were prohibited, that means no more grants for bulletproof vests the breathalyzers, the data masters. Data masters are used for DUI enforcement. And a lot of the training and equipment, especially for highway safety that comes through NHTSA, would no longer be permissible. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to support prohibiting contracts between law enforcement and other certain federal agencies, but with the blanket language that is in here, there would be essential components that would be taken away from sheriff's departments. So I'll be voting no on both proposed amendments.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the senator from Addison in the first instance only? Are you ready for that question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
No.
The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it. The question now is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the senator from Addison in the second instance? Are you ready for that question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
No.
The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have ordered third reading of S-255. We have on the calendar for action S-157, introduced May 30th of 25. It was referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare, which reports it's considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as set forth in today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. The bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which reports it is considered the bill and recommends that the amendment proposed by the Committee on Health and Welfare be amended as set forth in the calendar today on page 224, and that when amended, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the appropriations of the state, the bill was then referred to the Committee on It didn't go to appropriations. Okay, that's okay. The bill did not go to appropriations. So listen to the second reading of the bill.
S-157, an act relating to recovery residence certification.
I recognize the senator from Orange District, Senator Benson, for the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare.
Mr. President, may I speak on both the amendment and the underlying bill?
You may.
Mr. President, the Health and Welfare Committee heard from a number of witnesses on this bill, including the Department of Health, Vermont Foundation for Recovery, Vermont Alliance for Recovery Residences, the Vermont Foundation of Recovery, Recovery House, and from Ledge Council. If I, without objection, Mr. President, in addition, during Recovery Day, in a joint session with the House Human Resources Committee, we also heard from a number of individuals who struggled with substance use disorder. They gave great credit to their recovery, to the safe environment and support they received in recovery houses, putting them on a path to becoming productive members of society once again, and they expressed support for S-157. Without objection, Mr. President, may I quote by reading two paragraphs from some of the testimony that we received. The first from the Executive Director of the Vermont Alliance for Recovery Residences, which provides a description of recovery residences, and the second from Candace Gale of the Recovery Partners of Vermont, which presents the essence of S-157.
You may.
Thank you. Recovery residences are not treatment. They offer a vital opportunity for individuals seeking recovery following a residential treatment program. They offer a safe, substance-free environment rooted in peer support, often removing individuals from settings that fuel addiction. Residents live together as a family, sharing meals, responsibilities, and activities while emphasizing structure, accountability, employment, and service to the community. Research consistently shows that recovery residences improve long-term recovery outcomes, including reduced substance use and relapse, lower incarceration rates, and increased employment and improved family functioning. End of quote. Second, it is important to be clear that this bill does not remove protections or eliminate accountability. Landlord-tenant law continues to apply. What S 17057 does is clear out how certified recovery residences can uphold their policies in limited circumstances where a person's behavior may jeopardize the safety or recovery of others in a home. Without this clarity, operators are placed in an impossible position, forced to choose between maintaining a safe recovery environment and navigating process that were never designed for recovery housing. End of quote. Move on to the bill itself. S 157, an act related to recovery resident certification. This bill gives the Department of Health's Division of Substance Use Programs regulatory responsibility for recovery residences. It requires the department to adopt rules establishing a recovery residences certification program. The bill further makes permanent the conditions under which recovery residents may immediately exit or transfer residence. So Section 1 amends 18 VSA 4802 definitions by adding a definition of recovery residences. Section 2 amends 18 VSA 4806. This Division of Substance Use Programs, adding recovery residents to the list of services that Department of Health Division of Substance Use Programs is responsible for. Section 3 amends 9 VSA 4452 exclusions. Existing law enables a recovery residence to immediately exit or transfer a resident if certain conditions are met. These conditions require that prior to any exit or transfer, the recovery residence has developed and adopted a residential agreement and obtains a resident's written consent. The resident violated the substance use policy in the residential agreement or engages in acts of violence that threaten the health or safety of other residents, and the recovery residents provided or arranged for suitable bed or other alternative temporary housing. This requiring that the recovery residents' residential agreement explain the residence's program rules too, and the social standards, specifying that the resident who regularly refuses to engage in services or programming, commits a crime, engages in theft, interferes with the recovery of other residents, or engages in acts that threaten the safety of the volunteers in addition to the staff and other residents, may be subject to immediate exit or transfer. Cross-referencing of the definition of recovery residence used in section 1. Section 4 amends 2024 AR number 163, section 5, sunset recovery residence, residential agreement reporting. The existing language in section 3, 9 VSA 4452B is set to sunset on July 1, 2026. This amendment removes the sunset so the language remains permanent. Section 5, rulemaking recovery residence certification, requires the Department of Health to file an initial proposed rules by September 1, 2027 to establish a recovery residence certification program. Minimally, the rules must require the recovery resident seeking certification to comply with the trying to remember the Vermont ARR. Yeah.
Vermont Association for Recovery.
Right, Vermont Association for Recovery Residences. I had that one off of my brain, but standards or another organization recognized by the Department of Health. Sets forth data collection and reporting requirements for certification recovery residents. And the Department of Health must comply with the rulemaking process by December 1, 2028. Section 6 sets the effective date of July 1, 2026. Mr. President, the committee voted the bill out favorably, 5-0-0, and I would request that the Senate support this bill.
I now recognize the senator from Chittenden District, Senator Gulick, for the report of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this bill was sent to the Finance Committee, and we searched high and low for fees, and we could not find any. But we did take the opportunity to make an amendment which would allow for rulemaking in the event that the department wants to add a fee at a later date. They would have to come to the General Assembly, and you will see that in the amendment on page 224. We also added another small amendment because we had accidentally left out the word "and volunteers" or words "and or volunteers" in another part of the bill. So we took the opportunity to make those two changes, and we hope that the Senate will concur with our amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
So the first question is, shall the recommendation of amendment of the Committee on Health and Welfare be amended as proposed by the Committee on Finance? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Finance. The next question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on
No,
Health?
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, Senator from Windsor.
Did we just accept the amendment from the Health and Welfare Committee?
We just accepted the amendment from the Finance Committee to the Health and Welfare report.
My apologies. While I will be voting for either of those, I misunderstood the proposed question. So we are now voting on the Health and Welfare amendment, and we just had voted on the Finance amendment?
As amended, yes.
Thank you.
Let's make sure I got the question right. Proposed. Next question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare as amended? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Windham.
Mr. President, I appreciate the committee's work on this issue. There are a few questions I have here regarding some language on page 222 of today's calendar in, I believe, subparagraph 5 and subsection C. May I inquire of the reporter?
The reporter is interrogated.
Mr. President, I'm looking at the language that says commits a crime, and I'm wondering if the senator can clarify if that means an individual has been arraigned for an offense or if they've been convicted of an offense.
Mr. President, committee did not specifically talk about the definition of crime. I think it was meant to be of a general sense of an individual acting in an appropriate way or committing a crime of possibly stealing from one of the other residents in the home or committing a crime outside of the home when they're out in the public.
And was there any conversation about whether the language of engages in theft is already encompassed by the language of commits a crime?
Call a recess if you like.
Mr. President, may we take a brief recess, please?
We'll take a brief recess. Will the Senate please come to order? You may continue.
I thank the senator.
Mr. President.
Senator from Orange.
We will come back with some further information at third reading.
Mr. President, I will be most likely introducing a amendment between now and third reading, just clarifying the language there where we will be striking engages in theft and modifying the language that says commits a crime and editing that to arraigned for an offense. It will clean up the language a bit better, and hopefully it will be well received by the committee. And thank you.
Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the presenter of this?
The presenter is interrogated.
Wonderful. My first question is around the language of a residential agreement. Is this a lease?
Mr. President, it's not a lease. It is an agreement that sets the terms so that the individual who is coming into the residence understands what the rules are for being housed in that facility.
So these tenants don't have any of the legal protections of a lease?
Well, Mr. President, as I think I read from the beginning, the tenant lease laws still apply.
So if someone were to be immediately exited or evicted, would they have to go through a judicial process as one would a typical tenant lease law?
Well, Mr. President, the intent here is no, because they have signed this agreement with the home. And as part of that, they have agreed that if in fact any one of these conditions are violated, that they could be immediately removed from the home.
So then landlord-tenant law and the protections of a lease do not apply?
They not a lawyer, but they apply in the broad sense, but not in terms of if they violate those certain conditions for being housed in that residence.
And what will be done to ensure that someone who may be struggling with a relapse or struggling with their mental health is not exited to the streets?
Thank you, Mr. President. Part of the agreement is a structure that the individual signs onto that actually defines where that individual would be housed in the event of them needing to be exited from the home, so that they would not be out on the street, but they would, by example, if they were to relapse or once again fall subject to substance abuse, they would go to the higher level of care into a rehab facility for that.
And would that entrance into a higher level of care be pending a bed available?
Mr. President, what we received from testimony is that that should not be a problem in the development of the agreement, because the facility that this individual would be exited to has signed on as well as part of the agreement.
Okay, and if there's no place for a person to go who's while creating this agreement, there's no alternative, and they want the services of a recovery residence, what happens then?
If there's no, Mr. President, if there is no place for the individual to go, they would not be turned out on the street. They would continue to be housed till a place was available. The real issue is what we're trying to avoid is when an individual either relapses or engages in inappropriate behavior, it affects all the rest of the residents in the home who are already dealing with enough and trying to make their way to recovery. And so this tries to put into place a process to deal with that for the protection of the other residents in the home.
I appreciate that. My hopefully last question is that aspect here in the creation of the agreement, it's 2 up in number 3, that part of the agreement must be that they designate an alternative housing arrangement. Is that the program that designates that or the person who is seeking the services? My concern is if someone is coming in and doesn't have an alternative arrangement, are they going to be turned away from services at the residential recovery facility?
Mr. President, as we know, a lot of these individuals need support, and it would be a joint piece that they would work with the recovery residents in the development and with other state agencies to produce that recovery plan.
I thank the senator, and I appreciate what this is trying to do. I have some concerns, but I'm hoping I can talk with the committee between second and third reading to see if they can be addressed. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare as amended? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare as amended. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of S 157. We have on the calendar for action S 163, an act relating to the role of advanced practice regulated nurses in hospital care. Was introduced to the Senate January 6th of 26. Was referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as it appears on page 225 of today's calendar, and then when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
S 163, an act relating to the role of advanced practice registered nurses in hospital care.
I recognize the senator from Orleans District, Senator Morley, for the report of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I speak to the amendment as well as the underlying bill?
You may.
Thank you. I'm going to speak to the amendment as I go through the bill. It's a fairly short bill. It's an act relating to the role of advanced practices, registered nurses in hospital care. And under 1851, the definitions: 1, advanced practice registered nurse, or APRN, means an individual licensed under 26 VSA, Chapter 28, Subchapter 2. And that's where you have the APRN language. On the second page, under 3, patient means an individual instruct person and an individual admitted to a hospital on inpatient basis. Under 4, physician means an individual licensed under 26 VSA, Chapter 23 or 33. 23s for medical doctors and 33s for osteopathy. And under section 2, this is under 1852, Patient's Bill of Rights, and this is where the amendment comes in. So under 1852A2, it was saying the patient shall have an attending physician or APRN who is responsible for coordinating the patient's care. Physician consultation and support shall be available to an attending APRN at all times in accordance with applicable standards of practice and regulatory requirements. OPR, the Office of Professional Regulation, came in and gave testimony and requested removal because this consultation is not required by the APRNs in the scope of practice. So that's why that gets deleted. So now it just states the patient shall have an attending physician or APRN who is responsible for coordinating the patient's care. Under 3, the patient has the right to obtain from the physician or APRN coordinating his or her. We struck that. And now it's the patients, and the reason was we removed gender terms throughout this bill for technical corrections purposes. Same with page 3, technical corrections. Going down to the bottom of page 4, failure to comply with any provision of this section may constitute a basis for disciplinary action against a physician under 26 VSA, Chapter 23 or 33, as I stated earlier, or against an APRN under 26 VSA, Chapter 28, which is the APRN statute. A complaint may be filed with the Board of Medical Practice or the Office of Professional Regulation as applicable based on the license held by the practitioner. Remember, the office, the OPR is with regulates the APRNs. On page 5, license requirements, section 3. All patients admitted to the hospital shall be under the care of a physician's license pursuant to 26 VSA, and that's actually the Professions and Occupation Statute, Chapter 23 or 33. An advanced practice registered nurse license pursuant to 26 VSA, Chapter 28. On the last page, you have professional case records shall be compiled for all patients and signed by the attending physician or advanced practice registered nurse. They shall be kept on file for a minimum of 10 years. The effective date is, this act shall take effect on passage. The witness list, so I won't forget that this time, was Senator Rebecca White, sponsor of the bill, Jen Collin of the Office of Professional Regulation, Sheila Boney, the Executive Director of the Board of Nursing, Michelle Wade of the Vermont Nurse Practitioners Association, Jade Kaplan, a certified nurse midwife, the American College of Nurse Midwifery, Devin Green of the Vermont Association of Hospitals and Health Systems, Jessa Barnard of the Vermont Medical Society, Lauren Hibbert, Deputy Secretary of State of the Secretary of State's Office. And the Committee on Health and Welfare voted this bill out of committee 5-0-0. And Mr. President, we ask that the Senate concur. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have ordered third reading of S-163. That completes the orders of the day. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the body for our longest session to date. I will just note that as we move toward crossover, this will be a frequent occurrence. So we will be seated longer. We will be discussing more and more intently. I would just say secrete some snacks somewhere. If it ever comes to the point where we are on the floor for a very long time, we will arrange for food to be brought in, but in general, having something to eat off the floor is not a bad idea. With that, Mr. President, I would suggest that we adjourn, and I will make the motion that pending announcements, we adjourn until 11:30 a.m. Friday, February 27th, 2020.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Essex.
Mr. President, I'd like to rise on a point of personal privilege. In life, you meet a lot of people. Sometimes you don't even know who you've met until your new friend has had tragedy or misfortune enter their lives, such as for the reason I rise today. When you are my friend, you also get the full protections of how I wish I would be treated. Respect always, full attention always, loyalty always, and absolute privacy of what is going on in your life that you would wish not to be shared, but that I know because you trusted me enough to tell you what hardship you were going through. I have a friend that is going through a very rough time. It is now very public knowledge. Not only do all Vermonters know the story, the United States knows, if not the entire world. My intentions are not to gossip about my friend's family's misfortune, but to let him be aware that his family is now Vermont's family, if not the United States family. Cameron Guthrie, We all pray that your mom is returned safely, unharmed, except for the 26+ days that she's been abducted, and that your family can start the healing process of all of what you have gone through. We all pray that this happens soon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that the senator's comments from Essex be journalized.
Senator from Chittenden.
I will withdraw my adjournment motion.
The senator from Franklin has moved that the senator from Essex remarks be journalized. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the senator's remarks will be journalized. Are there any further announcements? Senator from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate institutions will meet at 3.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at the fall of the gavel. We had a room full of witnesses at 1:30.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Appropriations will meet 5 minutes after the following hour.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Government Operations will meet immediately after the fall of the gavel. Please don't dawdle.
Senator from Windsor. Could she be the dawdler?
Why was he looking at?
I don't know.
Mr. President, I know that if the senators have a moment to step out of their committee for 5 minutes to listen to the State House singers sing the devotional in the House chamber, it would be wonderful. I think sadly I'm the only senator who sings with the State House singers, which doesn't mean we aren't recruiting actively for our next devotional. But anyway, if you have a quiet moment to step out of your committee and come hear us, we'd love to hear you. Have you?
Are there further announcements? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move then that the Senate stand in adjournment until 11:30 a.m. Friday, February 27th.
Senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 11:30 a.m. Friday, February 27th, 2026. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll stand in adjournment until 11:30 a.m. Friday, February 27th of 2026.